Okay. Ready or not? Here we go. Okay. So, I have good news and bad news. Let's start with, when you start the good news and the bad news. Start with the good news. It's always good to start with good news. The good news is that we're starting a new round of Thursday night classes. And we're back to Breishis. And that's exciting, because we're back to the beginning of the Torah. And that's very exciting. The bad news is that I don't understand what I'm teaching you tonight, so that's even better. Okay. So every week we study on this class from the teachings of the Alter Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, or most of the weeks. And we are today left with one, and we study from his book. In Breishis, the book of the Alter Rebbe is Torah Or in Breishis and Shemois. On the last couple of months, we were learning Likutei Torah, which is Vayikra Bamidbar Devar. On Breishis, we've studied in the past already all the discourses on Parshas Breishis. That is all the easy ones. What's left, what do you always leave for the end, are the hard ones. In Parshas Breishis, there was only one left. So in my mind, I said, this is going to be very, very, very easy because it's a very small discourse. So it's a piece of cake. Problem is, the smaller they are, the harder they are. Means that there's less explanation. So I gave this a shot today, and I don't feel that I have any grasp on what we're going to learn, but we're going to see now what's interesting. What's over here on page 14 in Torah Or, Daf Zayin Omid Beis. What's over here may be one column, because if you take, it starts over here, Yuval Hu, that's the mimer we're going to learn, Yuval Hu, it's the last mimer on Breishis that we haven't learned yet. It fits one column. If you add the top up over here, you will have like one column of page 14. The very same discourse explained by his son, the Mittler Rebbe, who would elaborate on his father's teachings. So his Mittler Rebbe has a book, Teres Chaim, this big book on Breishis, and this very same discourse spans as follows: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 full back, 2 sides, 4 columns. I mean, on each. So 12 times 4 is what? 48 pages. So on this father's one page, he's got 48 pages of explanation. So if someone sits down and he says, you know what, let me just read this and think he understands it, you really need to learn the explanation. So I started reading the explanation, but I didn't get further than a half. The mimer is a little bit more elaborate in a different version of it. Over here in Tavkuf Samaches, in the back, has the same discourse, more words. The problem with Torah Or is that there's not a lot of words. It's very skimpy on words. Likutei Torah has more words. Torah Or is very concentrated. It's a little hard. So let's see. We'll start. We'll see where it goes. The Tzemach Tzedek also has a fascinating description, or rather explanation. Problem is, the more I was reading in explanations, the more confused I got. So I'm confused, but okay, it's okay. It's not the first time, right? It's okay. It's a good sign. It was also the holiday until yesterday, so we had limited amount of time for preparation. So let's learn. We'll see where it goes. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvarei. This week, in the end of the Torah portion of Parshas Breishis. Parshas Breishis is like one of those parshas that, and I guess it reflects, the discourse we're learning tonight reflects the parsha. Parshas Breishis is one parsha that you read and you never understand. Who understands Parshas Breishis? The whole thing is like such a mystery about what was going on and the story of creation and the life of Adam and Chava in the tree. What kind of people were they? Who were they? What were they? They obviously weren't so physical like we are. And then what happened with them? But with the snake, the talking snake, and the whole story is very weird. And to understand it and so it remains an enigma. The Torah in general is something that we realize it's beyond our understanding, but Breishis even more so. So it shouldn't be a chiddush that we're wondering on the meaning of of this mimer. Now, the mimer also strangely is something. It is based on a pasuk which talks about the grandchildren of Adam and Eve, of Adam and Chava. So, and actually the descendants of Cain. Cain, his brother Hevel. Cain killed his brother Hevel. Hevel didn't have any offspring. He was killed before he ever had children. Cain had a family. In the end, his descendants were wiped out by the flood anyways. The world was really rebuilt by the third brother, who was born later, Shes. Okay? You're with me. So, Cain had a grandson. Cain's son was called Chanoch. This is not the Chanoch who went up young. No, that's a different Chanoch. Cain had a son named Chanoch. And there's another Chanoch who's from Sheth's grandchildren. And Cain has a son named Chanoch. Chanoch had a son called Irad. Irad had a son called Michu-Yael. Michu-Yael had a son called Misu-Shael. And Misu-Shael gave birth to a child called Lemech. Now Lemech, if you didn't realize, remember, Lemech is the one who ends up killing his grandfather. Because God, when Cain was scared, because and Hashem said, since you killed your brother, you're never going to be welcomed anywhere. Everybody's going to chase after you, and you're always going to be wandering. So Cain was afraid. So Hashem told Cain, don't be afraid. You have 7 generations until you will be punished. You've been extended 7 generations. So 7 generations later, we had Chanoch, right? Cain has a son Chanoch. Chanoch has a son Irad. Irad Michu-Yael. Michu-Yael has Misu-Shael. Misu-Shael. So what are they? Cain. I guess we start with Cain. Cain, Chanoch, Irad, Michu-Yael, Misu-Shael, and Lemech. So he's number 6. No. Wait a second. And the next, it wasn't Lemech who killed his grandfather. It was Lemech's kid. Lemech had 2 wives. One of them was named Ada, and the other one was named Tzila. Ada gave birth to a fellow by the name of Yuval, and a brother by the name of Yuval. That's what our discourse is going to focus today on. Strangely, on these 2 boys, the sons of Lemech, whose his name is Yuval and the other one is Yuval. And the mimer is going to explain the difference between Yuval and Yuval. Same word, just different pronunciation. And we know that the word Yuval is a very, very, very important word because it reminds us of the Jubilee of Yovel, which is the 50th year, which we know that that's the source of freedom, and after 50 years, all slaves are freed when the Yovel year comes. So when we hear the word Yovel, it should get us excited. It's a very Moshiach name. It's a very, and yet there's 2 ways of, and these are the 2 children of Lemech. One is Yuval, the other one is Yovel, and the other one is Yuval. Okay. And we're going to see in a moment, one of them is the first musician. One of them is the one who literally is he is the founder of music. He's the one who first one who plays instruments. Okay, the other one is a shepherd, a nomad, and he lives in tents. So the Torah obviously is telling this to us that it has deep godly meaning. And the Rebbe is going to explain in this discourse what is the godly meaning of the Yuval and Yaval and Yuval. But just for a moment, let's hold that for a moment. The other wife of Lemach gives birth to a fellow by the name of Tuval Kayin. Now Tuval Kayin is the one who kills Kayin. Tuval Kayin was a smith, and he's the first one who produced guns. This is before the days of guns, but weapons. He was the one. He was the founder of the NRA, the National Rifle Association. This was Tuval Kayin, and he accidentally killed his grandfather. It was an accident. They went hunting, and they thought it was an animal. His father Lemach couldn't see so well, and he told him to shoot, and he shot, and he thought it was an animal, and meanwhile it was his grandfather. So he killed him. That's the thing over here. But these are the children of the second wife. The mimer that we're learning today is not dealing with the children of the second wife. It is dealing with the children of the first wife, whose name was Ada, and she gave birth, again, as I told you. Let's read the pasuk. Pasuk says like this: Vateled Ada es Yuval. Ada gives birth to Yuval, who Haya avi Yoshev Ohel Umikne. He is the father. He's the founder. He's the first person who lived in tents with cattle. In other words, he was a father of shepherds, and the idea of setting up, like the Bedouins, where they go out and they just have tents and they live out, and they don't live in a more of a permanent home. They're taking the animals to pasture, and wherever they take the animals, that's where they pitch their tent. So he's the first one who did that. Okay, he was a tent dweller. Now, interesting, we call Yoshev Ohel. When you hear the word Yoshev Ohel, who lived in tents, we wouldn't have made the association, because you're thinking of a guy who's living before the Mabul, before the flood. These generations were wicked people. So you wouldn't make the association that I'm going to make in a moment. We know that the Jewish people are divided into two groups. One group of the Jewish people are called Baalei Esek. Baalei Esek means business people. Jews who go out and work for a living. And then there is another group of Jewish people that are called the clergymen, rabbis, and those who study Torah all day long. Those who study Torah, they're called, the way we refer to them is Yoshvei Ohel, those who live in tents. They sit in the tents. Isn't it interesting that this fellow, he's the father of all Yoshev Ohel. So in a sense, it can mean he's the father of all those who study Torah. Because those who study Torah are called Yoshev Ohel. It's interesting, it's not going to be mentioned in the mimer. It's not mentioned in the mimer. I'm mentioning it because the Tzemach Tzedek associates it. But I'm just trying to bring out to you that when we're talking about that he was a tent dweller and he was a Bedouin and ran around with the animals and went from place to place and pitched his tent, and he's the one who innovated this kind of lifestyle. He was the first one who lived this way. We have to realize that we're dealing with some great mystical concept in addition to the physical meaning of there's a man called Yuval. So what we need to understand is, why is the person called Yuval the father, the tent dweller, the father of all tent dwellers? Hold on, let's read about his brother. Shem Achiv, the name of his brother, Yuval. So his older brother is Yuval. He is Yuval. The only difference is it's Yuval with a, it's called, the pronunciation is with a chirik. I'm sorry, with a melupim. A melupim is a u sound. The first one, his pronunciation is with a kametz. Kametz is a a sound. So he's called Yuval. Yuval and Yuval, two brothers. What does Yuval do? Hu Haya avi kol toifes kinar. He is the father of musicians. Okay, he's Yuval. Yuval was the first musician. He was the Mozart of the pre-Mabul world. Okay, he held on to a kinar, to a harp, and an ugav. A kinar, the difference between a kinar and an ugav, which I for the first time saw today. A kinar makes a very, very, very fine sound. Kinar is a harp, like a violin, makes a very thin sound, very, very refined. And ugav makes a very deep, 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 loud sound. What exactly is an ugav? I would have to look in. Could be. I would have to look in an English siddur for a moment. If you can just bring it to me. Let's get a translation for ugav. We say it every day, right? Hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah b'minim v'ugav. Oh, no, it's interesting, with a flute. I would have never thought it's a flute, but it's a loud sound, that's what it is. Praise him with stringed instruments and flute. Yeah. Praise him with timbrel and dance, that's soifu mochel. Halu b'minim v'ugav, praise him with string instruments and a flute. I never know ugav is a flute. So what does the Tzemach Tzedek say? Give me just 1 second. He says that the ugav has maybe a flute. Let me just get the. It's a high pitched sound. Just give me a second over here. It's not deep. I thought it's deep. Okay, so if he's saying, let me get it over here a minute here. Give me a second here. It's a what? Ugav is what? A pipe organ. That makes more sense. There we go. See? So, he says, ugav koil rum. No, koil rum. He says it's a loud sound. He says a kinar has a low sound, meaning a more, it's a kinar. It's not a violin. It's a harp. So a harp has a lower sound. And an ugav, it's a harp, not a violin. And an ugav has a very loud sound. But I'll kaput him. Whatever it is, this Yuval fellow was the first musician. He was the one who would hold on to an art, he would take a hold of a kinnor, of a harp, of a ugav, and either a flute or, as he said, a pipe organ. Fine. So you have two brothers. One of them lives in tents, the first one to live in tents, and he's out, he's a shepherd with animals. In other words, his business is with cattle and with animals. The other one is a musician. That's interesting because shepherds a lot of times. So maybe, we always have the thing about the shepherd with his flute. So maybe he got that from his brother because his brother was the musician. But his brother was the first founder of music school or the first musicians and his brother. So it's interesting how the Torah traces music way back to the early 7th generation of civilization where they were already life, I guess, they figured out enough elements of basic living because Hashem tells Adam, by the sweat of your brow, you're gonna toil. So they were so busy, they didn't have time for music. But by that time, they already created some instruments, some working tools, and so on and so forth. So they were able to sit around the campfire and play some music. He was the first one. Okay. But the interesting thing is that one of them is called Yuval and the other one is called Yuval. So we need to understand both the significance of these names. And as I mentioned earlier, the name is very, very connected to the word Yovel, which Yovel is such an important idea. It's the place where all freedom comes from. In Kabbalah, Yovel is associated with Bina. Bina is the source of cherus, of liberty. That's why the 50th year, everybody's freed. But here we don't call them Yovel. it's not the pronunciation of Yovel. It's Yovel and Yuval. Okay? And then we need to understand the connection of why is Yovel the one who has dwells in tents, and why is Yuval the one who's the musician? So we need to really get deeper. So the Alter Rebbe is going to start appreciating what music is really all about, and he's going to explain music, the purpose of music, as it applies to the greater cosmos, in addition just to human pleasure and delight that we're in music. But what does music mean in the greater cosmic experience? So he's going to explain how music exists in all worlds, in all realities. And the higher you go, the more powerful the music is. But mainly, what's the function of music? What's it supposed to do? What music is supposed to do, it's supposed to move you, and it's supposed to take you out of your density. That's music. We become very not relaxed, become very dense and coarse and dense and dead. What music does is it wakes us up from our deadness by doing what? Because it creates some kind of a feeling of it creates the feeling of it opens up yearning for something else, to be elsewhere, which is that pull, that yearning, that desire, that longing. It can be longing, but it's the idea, it's the movement. It's the movement to take you out from just where you are and what you are. In the words of the Alter Rebbe over here, which, as I said earlier, the Mittler Rebbe has 6 pages explaining this, and the Alter Rebbe just has 4 or 5 lines on this, is that the idea of music is to bring you to bittul. Bittul of who you were before. Bittul means nullification of your previous existence. And that's very, very important, because that's the only way that you open up to more powerful experiences, is if you get out of yourself. Music takes you out of yourself. One needs to get out of himself to begin the process of any spiritual growth or any kind of elevation. To be elevated to a higher state, one has to lose their sense of self and self-importance and so on and so forth. The song that he's primarily probably talking about is the song of the Jew who's praying. And like the Chassid always prayed with a niggin. What did the niggin help? The niggin helps because the niggin creates that it's part of the process of getting out of where you are. There's one thing you can meditate. For example, the person who's davening, Chassidic prayer means that you're meditating on godliness, on something holy and godly. You're appreciating Hashem. And then as a result of that appreciation, you're doing what? You want to get close. So the song is already bringing you into that closeness. As opposed to just the meditation, okay, it's nice. It's like, wow, it's phenomenal, it's wonderful. But you remain, the person remains kind of fixed in where they are. Okay, I'm good. So there's this phenomenal. The song is that attachment, that moving out from where I am because I want to go there. But it's not exactly. See, what's fine point over here is hard to really differentiate. Simply you can argue then and say, well, that's the function of the emotion. That's the idea of stirring the heart. There is intellect, and the whole point of davening is that the intellect, the mind, what you appreciate intellectually, should stir your emotions. So you should get excited. You should feel a sense of love to Hashem or awe to God or something like that. So then what exactly, but that can happen without the niggin. What's the niggin? So he's associating over here the niggin with the inyan of bittul. That the niggin is more the movement out of self. The movement out of self. So that's why from the Mittler Rebbe it seems, again, not so much expressed over here, that there is a certain, that we're talking about a certain meridus. There's a certain bitterness in that song. There's a certain, like, it's like the song conveys some element of pain, of being dissatisfied. It's like the example that he's going to talk about is a seed. In order for it to grow into something amazing, a tree, or even like to create a bunch of grain, the seed must get out of itself. As long as the seed is a seed, it can't. It must rot. It seems like the song is part of that rotting process, but in a very positive way. You're rotting from that self-satisfaction and self-content. Being content and being happy and satisfied is wonderful for 3 seconds. Afterwards, you have to move on. You have to move into some. It's the thing. Feeling content when it comes to material things, as it says in Chassidus, content with being, or in the Mishnah, is a very, very good trait. For a person to be happy with their physical lot is a good thing. Because asameach bechelko, it's good for a person to be satisfied. Because if you're not satisfied with your material lot, then no matter how much you're going to have, you're always going to want more, and that's not what life is all about, to just have more and more material things. But when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to holiness, over there being content is the ultimate obstacle. That's not, like it says in Hayom Yom, hasameach bechelkoi, being happy in one's lot, in spiritual matters is the worst thing possible, the biggest impediment. So no matter what a person achieves, no matter what level you've come to, there always has to be that tension and frustration with where there is, and I want to go somewhere else. And the song is part of expressing. The song moves you. So I don't know if the song inspires it, or rather the feeling of it inspires the song, or both go together, but somehow the song is involved in this process of moving out from where you are to go somewhere else. And this is something that doesn't only happen down here in our lives, in our Jewish experience, in our spiritual quest of growth, which involves songs. You should know that in general spirituality, as people have always experienced spirituality, and we don't have to talk about it because we're talking about Yidden and so on and so forth, but you see it universally, that in all spiritual worship across the world, there's always been song involved in it. And why? Because there's always, in kind of a spiritual form of a worship, you're seeking something. You're feeling there's a certain lacking. An atheist, someone who doesn't believe in anything, there is a certain satisfaction with what is. But there's someone that has some kind of a feeling of a higher power, of a higher thing, and you want to reach and connect to that. It's not so much, it's not necessarily conscious, but the reason why all groups and in all places, it always is accompanied with song, and especially when we talk about in the Jewish experience in the Holy Temple, and the Beis Hamikdash, right? And the Holy Temple and the Beis Hamikdash, they would they had the Levian, right? So the Levites were singing. The Levites were singing and playing music, and that playing of the music that the Levites were singing, that music that the Levites were singing and playing was to help this movement. We're soon going to see help lift the animal up. And in prayer, it's the same thing. Because prayer is movement, and that's why the deeper the prayers are, the more we sing. So for example, on the weekdays, when the prayers are kind of like, we're not planning to go too far in praying during the week, we should, then we don't sing. You basically go to shul and you daven. There's no singing. Shabbos, when there is already a deeper prayer, especially Friday night, it says, when the whole point of the davening is like the person is trying to get out of the week and get into Shabbos. So Kabbalah Shabbos involves a lot of singing. It's the movement. The Arizal actually says that the main thing on Shabbos is to sing, not Torah. Actually, there was a question if you're allowed to even speak Torah on Shabbos. The main thing on Shabbos is singing. Because Shabbos, we're seeking to get out of the constrictions of who we are, of the weekday self, of the limited self, and reach into the infinite, reach into something higher. And that involves singing. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, when we're opening up to a much deeper level of soul, because the whole idea of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, which we just had, is The whole idea of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is mimamakim, from a deeper place. And the same is also what we're reaching for. We're reaching for, it's a process of tshuva, where we're reaching for not just for Hashem, for godly light, but we're reaching for transcendental dimensions of God, all the way to Hashem as he stands higher, as we discussed in our earlier classes. As Hashem stands higher than any definition. Over there is even a greater role of song. That's why in shuls, they sing extra on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Now the chassid, who would daven for 4 hours even on a regular day, would also have a lot of melody in his davening. Because here's the thing, you can't move without song. And what does the song do? The song takes you out from where you are. So I guess in that song, to get out from where you are, and I guess it can be a blend. I should put it this way. I guess it can be a blend of two things. It can be a very happy tune, or it can be a bitter tune, depending on what's motivating. The bitter tune is when one is more motivated by the distance. You just feel very, very, very discontent with where you are. You feel very claustrophobic. You feel yourself being very stuck. And you're singing with a longing to get out of that. Like the famous song of Shamil. One of the songs the Rebbe taught is a song of Shamil, which is a song of a great Cossack who was the head of a tribe, right? Beautiful story. There was a Cossack, he was the head of a tribe of Cossacks, and the Russians they were bandits, and they were having a very hard time with them. And the Russians decided they wanted to conquer him, and the wars that they were fighting, they never could conquer these Cossacks. And one time, they deceived him. They promised him that they're going to come make a treaty, and that he should only come down and talk to them, and that they're for sure they're not gonna do him. And then when he came, they arrested him, which was against their promise to him. And there he was sitting in a prison, and in this prison he sang. And there was a chassid who was also in jail at the same time. And the chassid heard the song of the Cossack, and he took that song and it became a Chassidic melody. That's one of the songs the Rebbe taught. And in that song, there are three stanzas in the song. And the Rebbe explained that in the song, the first stanza is memory. He remembers the hills, the high mountains, where he was once roaming and freely, and now he's stuck in the cellar. Shamil is a true story. No, it's a real story. There was a Shamil guy, his name was Shamil. That's why it's called Shamil. This guy's name was Shamil. He was a famous bandit, head of a group. So then he was sitting and he was singing, remembering the great place where he was. Then the other part of the song has a sense of how bitter his life is now, how frustrating it is. Second stanza goes very low and very dark, in a sense of like, instead of that beautiful world where he was able to, ride freely on his horse and gallop and be out there in the wild, he is now stuck in this little dingy cellar. And then the last part of the song has a lot of hope, because he's confident that somehow he's going to get at it. He's going to escape. He's going to break free. He's one day going to be free again. So the chassid took this song and interpreted it as the same story of our lives, because our neshamas were once outside of our bodies, free, up there in the highest levels of the divine, cleaving to God. Then somehow we ended up in a body that likes potato chips. And that's life. That's where we're at. And then when we realize that, we realize like what's happening. And then we have that confidence that through Torah and mitzvahs that we do in this world, and through prayer and doing the right thing, we'll get back in touch with what we once had. So that's the idea of, so depending what's felt, when going back to the song, when the person who's singing is more motivated with frustration, then there's more bitterness in the song. If what's motivating you is more, you can sense the light that's shining over there, but it's far and you want to get to it, but you're being pulled by the light, so it's more of a happy tune, because you sense the sweetness of it, the pleasure and the delight. But the main thing of the song is getting out of yourself. That's the idea of the song, to get out of yourself. And the Rebbe is going to explain over here that this is something that happens on all levels of existence, because angels in heaven also need to get out of themselves. Because in order for them to receive energy from God every day, They as long as they're fixed and limited, they're not a vessel to receive godly input, because God is infinite. Hashem's energy Hashem can't stand rigidity and hardness. There's holy rigidity when it comes to being strong and committed and unyielding in mitzvahs and in good things. But this being fixed and stuck and satisfied with self and so on and so forth, comfortable in one's own existence, is something that creates a blockage for godly flow. So every day the angels have to experience this song. And that's why they sing Shira every day. Neshamas also have the experience of song. What are souls doing when they move from level? We know that souls journey from one Gan Eden to another Gan Eden. Their journey that they journey from one place to the other place is always through song. And what's the idea of the song? Breaking out of them, getting out of where they were to reach for something higher. It's that. So let's read inside. Yuval is the person who is the father of all tents. Shem Achiv, in the name of his brother Yuval. He is the one that is the father of everyone who holds a harp and a flute. So the Alter Rebbe begins with a Mishnah, a statement of the Mishnah of Masechta Shabbos, and an interpretation which I think is from his teacher, the Holy Maggid. By the way, I forgot to mention, I started the class and I didn't mention, that today's class, because we're just now starting to learn actually inside, was dedicated by Mrs. Miriam Fishman. This is in honor of her father's yahrzeit, which is going to be on Shabbos. This coming Shabbos, the 27th of Cheshvan. And his name, let me just get that. His name is Tuvia Velvel Ben Meir. So his neshama should have a great aliyah. Okay, so back to the mimer. So in Masechta Shabbos it says, Hine Omer Azal, the sages say, Kol Baalei Hashir, Yoitzin Bashir. The simple meaning of it is, all animals that have a ring on their nose or around their necks, animals would have a certain ring, which would help a collar ring. And the point of that is that you can hook on it some kind of a leash or some kind of a device to lead the animal where you want to lead it. If you need to take a cow, how are you going to move the cow? But if you have a neck with a little ring, and then you can take that stick and then grab the cow, that metal pipe, and lead it to where you have to go because you have someone to grab him with. So that's called a Baalei Hashir. Shir means a ring. So Kol Baalei Hashir, Yoitzin, they're allowed to go out on Shabbos Bashir with Yoitzin. They go out from. They're allowed to go out of Shabbos. We know that we're not allowed to do any work on Shabbos, including one of the types of work you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. You're not allowed to carry. Okay, can't carry. We're not allowed to have our animals do work for us on Shabbos as well. Just like a person is not allowed to do work, their animal is not allowed to do work on their behalf. So the question is an animal allowed to walk out wearing this ring around its neck? And the Mishnah says they are allowed to. And the reason why they are allowed to is because it's considered like, it's not considered a load. It's like considered like clothing for them. Like, just like you're allowed to wear clothing, or a woman is allowed to, you can wear jewelry, it's not considered carrying. So Kol Baalei Hashir, Yoitzin Bashir. That's what the Mishnah says. The Maggid translated this in a very, very special way. I think it's from the Maggid, the Mizritcher Maggid, the Alter Rebbe's Rebbe. And when the Alter Rebbe was, and the Maggid explained it as follows: Kol Bali Yashir Yoitzin Bashir is referring to all the masters of song. The word shir can mean a ring, and the word shir is from the word shira. Shira means a song, or shir chadash, a new song. So since shir is a song, so the Maggid says, Kol Bali Shir, all the masters of song, all singing beings. Who are the singing beings? Angels and souls are singing beings. So take a look how a Mishnah suddenly has changed. The Mishnah is talking about animals in a stable or in a farm. They're allowed to go out on Shabbos, Bashir wearing this thing, Vinim Shachim, they're allowed to go out wearing it, Vinim Shachim, you're allowed to pull them back into the stable, Bashir with this ring. There's no problem with carrying from a private domain into a public domain into a private domain. You can take him out, you can bring him in. Comes the holy Mizritcher Maggid and says, I see a little more in this Mishnah, just a couple of notches deeper. Kol Bali Ashir means all singing beings. Who are the singing beings? Angels and souls. They sing. You see, the more spiritual a person is, the more they sing. The reason why in this world there are people who don't sing is because this world, once you come into a body, what does the body do? The body makes you blah, set, and as we said, stuck. In stuckness, there's no reason to sing. Sing is when you want to move somewhere. You feel like you want to get it. I mentioned earlier, why do we sing in shul during davening? Because we want our hearts to open up. We want to feel something and move out of ourselves, forget ourselves in the song. So up there, the spiritual beings, they're always singing because they appreciate the need to constantly move because they're so close to light. And they realize how small they are and how much more light there is, so they're so passionate and yearning for light, so they're always singing. But the coarser we get, especially the physical, but that's why you see that, for instance, the more spiritual people are, the more they sing. And you find in the Chassidic movement, which Hasidism came to bring back spirituality to Judaism, Hasidism brought back song to the Jewish experience. Increased singing in the Jewish experience way beyond what singing, the song that was there before. Song. So the Maggid says, hear the word, Kol Bali Ashir, all the Balachim and the Neshamis, Yoitzin, they go out of the level that they are. Malachim go out of the limitations and their boundaries to receive new influence from God. Neshamis, they rise from whichever Gan Eden they're in, from whichever level they are. They rise to higher levels of Gan Eden. They go out of themselves. Bashir, by singing, they sing a song, and that lifts them out from wherever they are. Hold on. V'nimshachin, and they're drawn. V'nimshachin means they're drawn bashir with a song. What does that mean? So the Maggid explains there's two levels, and we'll see it a little better over here. There's two levels. One of them is exiting the condition that you're in. The other one is to become included in the new place you're going to. So these are two songs. There's a song more that takes you out of where you were before, and there's another kind of a song that's inviting you in and pulling you in. And that's the meaning of Kol Bali Ashir, Yoitzin Bashir, go out with a song, V'nim Shachem Bashir, and they're drawn in with a song. That was his interpretation. There's a famous story that the Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the author of what we're learning today, came to the city of Shklov. I think it was in Shklov. And in the city of Shklov, there was the hotbed of the Misnagdim. And they were giving the Alter Rebbe and Chassidus a very hard time. And the Alter Rebbe came to debate them. because one of the arguments against the Chassidim were that there were a bunch of ignoramuses. They're just the simple people, the ignorant people. They're making up a new Judaism because they're lazy and they don't want to learn. So they created more like just a feel-good Judaism. That's how the Chassidim were accused for. They didn't realize that so many of the Chassidic, not so many, all the Chassidic masters, but especially some of them were Ga'an HaGa'onim, geniuses of Torah. In any case, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi went from place to place to prove that Chassidim know how to learn. And being the genius that he was. So he came to Brod to debate them and the questions that they had against Chassidus. So one of the things was, they heard that he's coming and he was already known, the Maggid of Liozna, so what happened was all the great scholars got together and we're going to call what we call today Stump the Rabbi. But the Stump the Rabbi wasn't with the silly questions that people stump the rabbi today. We're talking about the greatest scholars, and they were going to ask him difficult questions. And they all had their questions prepared and so on and so forth. Things that they themselves were studying and learning and they didn't know. They didn't know the answer. It wasn't like they were testing. He said to them, anything that's difficult, come and ask. So when the Alter Rebbe got up on the beam, I'm sure I'm losing some point. Instead of him, I don't know if they submitted their question. I don't think they submitted. Instead of him starting to take questions or something like that, the Alter Rebbe started singing a song. And he sang. And he swept up the entire crowd in his song. It wasn't stam that he sang well. Maybe the Alter Rebbe sang really well. But it wasn't it was the holiness of this tzaddik when he's singing. We're talking about one of the attributes of Atzilus of singing, Chachma of Atzilus of singing. That power of it swept them all up, and suddenly they were all in a trance. The entire place was suddenly caught up in the singing, and he took them elsewhere. When he finished the song, they were just catching their breath from where they've gone, and everybody had clarity in whichever question they had from the song that he sang. But the only thing that was confusing to them was, how did that happen? How in the world did that happen? So I don't know if at that point or later the Alter Rebbe explained this teaching of the Maggid. Kol Baalei Ashir, he explained the Mishnah Masechta Shabbos that it means, besides an animal going out of his place, but Kol Baalei Ashir, all malachim and neshamas go out. So he said basically like this: when a person doesn't understand something, is because their density of self is blocking them from the truth of the idea to reveal itself in their mind. Because they're stuck, because they have such self-importance, so much feeling of, oh, I know and I understand the subject already, and even when they get to something they don't understand, but because they can't let go of their own sense of knowing, I know everything, that's blocking them. What did the song do to them? The song took them out of themselves. Kind of as we spoke earlier, it took the seed and it caused it to rot. It pulled them out of their current existence, and that opened them up for the truth of the Torah to actually come down and reveal itself to them. That's the story. So this is the Mishnah that the Alter Rebbe begins over here with. Hinei Amar Azal, the sages say, Kol Baalei Ashir, all the beings that have the ring, Yoitzin B'Shir, Pirish. What does that mean? Shekol B'Chenes Hala Memohus Lemohus. Whenever there has to be an elevation from Mohus to Mohus, meaning whenever a being needs to rise from one level, from one state of existence, Lemohus, to go to a complete different state of existence. K'moi Megan Eden Atachten, Megan Eden Elyon, like the idea that neshamas. Oh, by the way, I wanted to relate to this. Someone sent me a video yesterday. I received, you would enjoy this. Someone sent me a video yesterday of Yeshiva's Panavish in Bnei Barak. Now, when we talk about the old-time shklov, the modern-day shklov today, if there's any shklov left, Panavish Yeshiva. Panavish Yeshiva in Bnei Barak. It's a yeshiva. And it's the That's the yeshiva of the ultimate non-Chassidic yeshiva. So matzah, and part of the history of Panim, especially in the last 50 years, there's a lot of tension between the Hasidim and the Panovich school. In any case, in that yeshiva, matzah simchas Torah, it looks like a Hasidic tish. All the Bachrim are lined up, high up on bleachers. And there's a few musicians, which is, by the way, new, because singing like that, and it's not what was done. And people sang here and there, but to have the whole yeshiva get together and sing like a Fabrengen is very, very recent and new. It's a good improvement. But in any case, the musicians are playing the Alter Rebbe song in Shklov. Daled Bovis. So beautiful. And the music plays a stanza. And the whole yeshiva, like mamash, like a Fabrengen, the whole yeshiva, thousands of Bachrim are singing, are answering, and they're singing along with it. They're all like doing like when the Rebbe would sing, and they would say one, and then the whole Chassidim would sing, and they're doing it together. And you watch the dais, the Rosh Yeshivas, and you can see one of the Rosh Yeshivas, he's so deeply taken by it. You see him, he's seeing it so deeply, and then you see him, he's seeing one like this, which to me looks like he's wiping a tear. In other words, it's moving him, it's pulling him, and to think that in Ponovich, it's not stop singing Nigunim, it's singing Chabad Nigunim. The Alter Rebbe's Nigunim. And it's not the first year. Last year they had it as well, but it's getting stronger and stronger from year to year. It's just a reminiscent of the Alter Rebbe singing in Shklov, which somehow, I'm sure when he was singing in Shklov, then he was beyond time, and he was singing in Panovich as well to loosen a little bit over there, and to get the people prepared for Mashiach. I'll send it to you. It's a beautiful video. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, they had it last year as well. But last year I saw them playing a few Nigunim. I didn't hear the Alter Rebbe's Nigun. I think they did Tzama. Last year I heard Tzama. This year they had Daled Bovis. In any case, every level of going up from one substance, from one level to another, like when the neshamas go up from the lower Gan Eden, the Gan Eden Elyon, to a higher Gan Eden, ukedoima and the like, hu al yedei hashir, is through the singing, shu b'chinas bittul hayesh. The singing is an experience of bittul, like we discussed earlier. Why a song is the idea of getting out of where you were, and rekenoi that is known. As we know, there is a principle and there's a rule, a scientific rule, that one existence cannot translate and metamorphosize into another existence unless in the middle it disintegrates from its previous existence. You can do embellishments and improvements to something without destroying it. When you want to improve something, you don't have to destroy it. You're just improving it. But if you want to, it's like, the room is a good room. You just want to, freshen it up a little bit, so you paint it, and so on and so forth. But if you want to create an entire new house, so then what are you going to have to do? You need demolition. You have to knock the house down, and then you can rebuild it. If you're just going to try to, then it's always going to retain what it was before, unless you. And like we see, the classic example is when you want to turn a seed into an apple tree. As long as the seed is going to be stubborn, if the seed is stubborn and very proud of itself being a seed, imagine if the seed is proud of being a seed. It's comfortable. It doesn't realize the potential that it has, that it can be a tree full of apples. It is smug by being such a cute seed. Imagine if he's the cutest seed around. And he feels so proud of being such a cute seed. And he's so proud of being so cute that he doesn't know. So then, but when it finally relinquishes and it gives in to the power, to the disintegrating or rotting power that there is in the soil, that causes him to rot, boy, oh boy, then he'll come out, his real power will come out, and it'll be a tree. So and that's our problem. The Mittler Rebbe says an amazing thing. Benegeya to this. He points that it is in davening, he gives an example. He gives an example from prayer, that we can't reach higher levels of prayer unless we reach frustration. There has to be frustration. There has to be a certain feel of like, whatever I have. I never davened, I never felt anything. There has to be a darkness in order to come to a greater place of light. Same as is also in learning. When you're learning something and you want to reach, and you need to reach a much deeper level of learning that's totally beyond what you have to forget what you learned before. That's why the Talmud says that Reb Zera, one of the great Talmudic sages, fasted 100 fasts in order for him to forget what he studied in the past. Because he used to study in Bavel. He was in the yeshivas of Babylonia, and then he was going up to learn in Jerusalem, in the yeshivas in Yerushalayim, and he felt that the study in Yerushalayim was so much higher that he fasted 100 fasts to help God erase his memory, so that we should be able to come to Yerushalayim, to Eretz Yisroel, and in Eretz Yisroel have a much higher type of learning. But he gives another example, which is interesting. He says your biggest impediment to parnasa, to livelihood, is that a person feels so important and self-accomplished and that he is smart and he's going to make himself a living. That's the reason why he says that in order for a person to make a living sometimes, God has to make him so crazy. In other words, everything he does has to fail so that he should come to a point of such frustration and realizing what kind of loser he is. And only in that sense, in that frustration, boom, that's when the Yeshua will come. And the big flow and the big bracha will come. Because as long as he's feeling so confident in his skills or whatever it is, that's blocking the Eibishter's bracha. Because the Eibishter's bracha is infinite. And when you're rigid and this, then you're blocking, because the finite boundaries of your existence are not allowing the blessing to come in. So amazing. He says, Bizayas apecha toicha lechem is an intrinsic part of the thing. You have to sweat. And he explains a psychological kind of sweating. It's when everything you're doing is failing. The bracha will come from the thing that you're not doing. But only after you've decayed and rotted. So it's an interesting example to this idea. In any case, ukedoima shu b'chinas bitl yesh. Hold on. Shalo yuchel lesavos miyesh liyesh, because from one existence to another existence can't come about. Elim kei nasa hayesh tchilo b'chinas ayin. The first yesh has to become nothing. As yochel lesavos memenu yesh achar. Then it can become a whole new entity. B'toisviz bracha, with added blessing, it can become so much greater than it was before. Kemoshel hagarin, like the example of a seed, hanizra ba'aretz, that is planted in the earth. Shetzarech lias nirkav ba'aretz, that seed needs to first rot in the earth. And afterwards it can grow many, many, many seeds, and many, many more, much more than what was before. The same is also above. And we're talking about souls, and we're talking about angels, by souls and angels. In order that the malach or the neshamas should have an aliyah, b'tois v'sasaga, with an added understanding, tzarech mekoydem liyus b'chinas bittul ayesh v'saga rishayna. See, when a neshama is in Gan Eden, what's Gan Eden? What's paradise? What's it doing over there? It's conceiving its creator. And it's experiencing the greatest pleasure, bliss, and delight from its apprehension, understanding of God, of godliness. But we all understand that God is infinite. So as much as you understand from God, there's always higher. But again, the greatest impediment on growth is if you're satisfied and you say, well, I know it all. What's going to happen if you know it all? You're stuck. So in order to be able to open up to a greater understanding, the soul has to sing. And that singing is part of the conveyance and expression of frustration, of where it is and what it is. So the song of the souls of Gan Eden might start off very bitter, because it's a certain disintegration of the previous. Then it gets happier as it's getting closer to the next Gan Eden. And when it gets closer to the next Gan Eden, it gets pulled into the higher Gan Eden, also through a song. Yes? Which 4 phases? You mean the 4 levels of neshama that there is? Neshama, nefesh, ruach, neshama? What are you talking? You're talking about a process that happens during birth. Okay. So, tzarech li sheli ali b'toisves hasaga tzarech mekoydem liyos b'bchinas bittul hayesh v'hasaga rishayna. So the neshama needs to first nullify its yesh and its first grasping. Shahaya loy. V'achakach yochel lalois, and then the neshama is able to arrive hasaga yoyse gedola, to a higher hasaga. In general, this experience of the song, the singing that goes between level and level. And by the way, it just occurred to me that when a Rebbe, when any one of our Rabbeim would say a discourse, which means would teach new Torah, new revelation, before the Torah was taught, it always was preceded with a special song. The song was the preparation. Because you can't receive new light until you sing. Until there is that nigun. That's why on Maayon Yisroel CDs there's always a song at the beginning. Right? And the song is to create, to open up, to move you. And that's the intro. So, but the Rebbe was always a nigun, and after the nigun came the maimer. So it says, in Kabbalah it says, that between one Gan Eden and the next Gan Eden, and this goes, there is a pillar, an omud, a pillar, an elevator like a pillar. And all souls have to enter into this pillar. And that's how they rise from Allah. Now, obviously, we're not dealing with a physical realm. There's no physicality there. So we're dealing with some kind of a passageway that they have to pass from one level of Gan Eden to the next. So what's that passageway? It's not Gan Eden. What's the Gan Eden itself? The Gan Eden itself is the experience of understanding and the ecstasy and pleasure that comes with the understanding. That's the Gan Eden. What's the in-between Gan Eden and Gan Eden? The in-between Gan Eden and Gan Eden, that's the song, that's the bittul experience. And the bittul experience is experienced with a song. By the way, the Mittler Rebbe talks, and he mentions that there's another level of bittul, that's silence. Where you're not even singing, because the singing expresses a desire of something. So there is still a sense of self to a certain degree, because if you can feel that you desire something, there's still some self. As opposed to being so knocked out that you're silent. Ishtoimim. The Gemara says about Rav, they asked him a question and Ishtoimim, he became silent kishachada for a while. It's that silence. It says by Eliezer, we're going to read about it also when Yitzchak and Rivka were about to meet. Not Yitzchak and Rivka, when he was about to meet Rivka and everything was working out, the pasuk says ve'ish mishta'eh, and the man was suddenly, mishtah means he was Rashi says, like, bewildered. What's that bewilderment? That's when something so powerful and so strong is overwhelming you that it kind of silences your entire being. It silences your brain, it silences your heart, and it's almost as if you don't exist at that moment. You've moved into a state of absolute nothingness. That, the Mittler Rebbe says, is even a deeper level of bittul that follows the song. In davening we have that. In davening we have singing in the beginning of davening. Psuka de Zimra is a time when we have verses of song, and it's all about song, it's all singing. And then you have Shmona Esrei, where it's just silence. There's no singing. Bittelish, tachavoya. But Al Kaponim, in this mimer, he's not discussing the bittel of silence. He's talking about the bittel that comes about through the song. And in general, that singing experience is associated with the amud, with that pillar that's connecting the Gan Edens, because that's the function of the pillar. It's the bittel, and that's where the singing takes place. In this amud, where they're going out of what was before and coming into something new. That is the amud, this pillar, that there is between the lower Gan Eden and the higher Gan Eden, hu b'chinas bittel kanal. It's this level of bittel. V'zehu kol balei ashir. And this is what it means, all the beings of songs, yoitzim b'hasegosam, they go out of their understanding, v'nimshachen, and they are drawn, la lois lamayla, to rise upward, al yedei ashir, through the song. And therefore, b'shas hakraves hakorban. Now, where do you have another case where you can actually see the process of a being elevated and being metamorphosized into something so much higher, deeper, and greater than what he was before? Where do you see that physically with your own eyes? That a creature and a being is now going to be completely transformed, like the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Where do you see that? Well, you saw that in the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash was the ultimate transformer of creatures, because what walked into the Beis HaMikdash as cows and went out from the other side of the Beis HaMikdash as celestial beings soaring up to the heavens. The Beis HaMikdash took cows and turned them into the highest angels. Even deeper than that. The Beis HaMikdash took a cow and turned it into energies of divinity, of godliness, even higher than there's Eser Spheros, the 10 attributes, rising and resonant and returning all the way back. As in Kabbalah we speak about Olam Atov, the worlds of chaos that precedes the world of Tikkun, that infinite light of God. And where is that journey happening? Beginning with the cow. We know that the most powerful thing was the service in the temple. And why do we make such a big deal about slaughtering animals? And the answer is, we know that every cow doesn't start as a cow. The spark in the cow was once contained in an angel. And that angel is a derivative of even a higher angel, and so on and so forth. And you trace it all the way back, you're talking about a spark of the divine. And in the divine, as we spoke earlier many times, a spark higher than the human. Higher up in that. It came down, and it turns into a sheep, a goat, or a cow. Now you're going to return it back to its original form. So you're going to elevate it. You're going to elevate the cow. It takes more than just killing it and putting it on and burning it. It requires a powerful thing to move the cow's soul out of what it is. You're talking about a neshama, a soul of a cow. Now the cow had a consciousness. What was his consciousness? The density of the cow was, what am I eating today? That's all it knew. It can't even think of lunch. It's just thinking of its food and its immediate comfort. That's the cow's instinctive, conscious, whatever it has. And from that, it's going to turn into a being that's yearning for God and higher and sick. So that transformation involves inspiring that soul to say, hey, I'm not happy being a cow. Was I always a cow? Imagine that light. Imagine that light bulb going on in the head of the cow, saying, I wasn't always a cow. I think I'm a little more than that. But for that, it needs a good niggin to be able to shake him. The Levium were singing to help the cows rise up, and to help this whole process of energy going from level to level to level to level, returning back to its quintessential state as... That's why in the Beis HaMikdash, the entire Avod in the Beis HaMikdash was accompanied by song. At the time when they offered karbanos. Haya tzarech li is gam kin shir. They also had singing. In yana karbonos, because the idea of a carbon, who Allah, it's an elevation. Mata l'mayla. Things are being elevated to a higher state of a being. Ishe reach nichoyach. It is a fire of a pleasant smell. It's present for a fragrance. And here too is where song plays a role. Bittel canal. The bittel, as we said before, it should be able to go up. Once we've now understood the function of song, and again, why are we talking about song? Because in the beginning of the Maimer, the pasuk says that there was a man, his name was Yuval, and he was the first musician. So now we know what's the idea of nigun, what's the idea of singing. Now he's going to take this a step further. And he's going to say that in that song that is being sung, which as we said before, singing, what's the pneumius of the singing? The pneumius of the singing is not the vocal sounds. The pneumius of the singing is the bittul that's happening as a result of the song. The getting out of the self, of the boundaries of self, and the self definitions, getting out of these definitions and these limitations that's happening in the song, that bittul. So the Rebbe is now going to explain that there's different kinds of bittul. There is simple bittul, and then there is more complex bittul. And then there is complex of complex and extremely complex. And that's why there's different types of song. There are songs that are very, very simple. There are songs that are more multi-layered. And then there's an entire orchestra piece that has so much. When I was learning it, I wasn't really connecting it so much to the actual experience of music, but that's the way it is. There are people who make music and it's just one tenua. It's like one, most of Kalabach songs, they don't have, most of them, I'm not saying all of them, they're more hovering in a more simple place. They have a low part and a high part, and they're kind of similar to each other, and they hover in that place. If you listen to a Ropshetz Chassidic, so you're dealing with such complexity. There's so much to it. And there's a happy part to it, and a slow part, and a fast, and one that's conveying bitterness. Many Chabad tunes, they're so rich in different angles. Then there is a short Chabad nigun that's just one tenua or many. That's what is explained in Kabbalah, that there's something called a shir pashut, a simple song. There's a shir kafel, there's a double song. There's a shir meshulash, a song, a triple song. And there's a shir meruba, there's a quadruple song. And that's as far as it goes. Four, talking about the number 4, when you asked me before about souls going through a process of 4, here's where the 4 comes in. That's the maximum in the song is either a song on 1 or 2 or 3 or a 4. So what does that mean? So he's explaining it like this. In a yashir pashut, there is a concept of a pashut song. The shir kafel, then there is a double song, and then mishulash, a triple one. He doesn't bring it here; you'll see it soon. Or meruba, and even a 4th. Ikanoida, as it is known. Why is that? If this amud, remember we said that the singing phase is associated with this channel that exists between the Gan Edens. That's where the singing takes place. Because that's where the rising of the souls are rising through the singing that's taking place. So it says that in the Amud there are 3 colors. Sometimes that pillar appears to be completely white. Sometimes the pillar of where the angels, where the souls are rising, appears to be completely red. And there are times when it's a mixed color between white and red. And you get yellow, and you get different tinges of yellow. Yellow closer to white, or yellow closer to red, which, as he explains, can be green or blue, or not so much over here. You don't have that. Right? The Mittler Rebbe goes through so many different colorings, showing which one blue is closer to red, and then green is closer to, I don't know, to white. I don't know why he's saying that. Maybe yellow. No, yellow. But in any case, that's called yarok. As it is known, Sheba Amud Yesh Gimel Gavanim. That in the Amud there are three colors. Chiver white, the sumak and red. And what does that mean? White, we always know, is the color of kindness. White is chesed. Shubchinas chesed, which is white. And red is the color of gevura. So the two primary emotions, kindness and chesed and gevura. So kindness is white, and gevura is red. The yarok, and what's this? Yarok is sometimes translated as green or sometimes translated as yellow. What is that? P'chinas is kalalos. It's a mixture of both colors together. Kihine, now what's the idea? So now we understand, hold it. When we say there is a simple song, or a blended song, or a double or triple element of song, well, the Amud is also discussed of being sometimes simple and sometimes complex. Various colors showing up in that Amud. Because the point over here is, when that soul is rising up in its singing, imagine this is a major thing. We're talking like a little soul. You're thinking little soul as it's climbing up. It's not a little soul. A soul is an entire universe. We're talking about a universe expiring, right? Like a star. What is it called? Huh? What's a supernova? Give me an explosion of a star. It's talking about a soul getting out of itself. The color of that explosion, of that tearing away of what a previous was, and the motivation behind it, the drive, the inner bittul that's it, can be a very simple experience of bittul, or it can be a complex experience of bittul. Now here's the thing. If it's simple, it's the highest bittul. If it's complex, it's usually on a more external level of bittul. That's its complexity. And let me explain that for a moment. We know part of this process of we're saying that when you're going into a higher place, there has to be a surrender. So one of the mashalim, one of the examples that are given in Chassidus, which is an example that it's hard for us to relate today because we don't really have the idea of a king anymore. When a person would go meet the king, they would go through this powerful experience of humbling and of lessening of one's ego until you become so unimportant in your own eyes in front of the greatness of the king. And then if a person walks into the king and talks to the king with big sense of importance and ego, the king is going to be fine. It'd be very distasteful for the king, because the king requires. He's the king. He's everything. So the more the king senses a total devotion, commitment, and lack of self in the recipient, the more they're a keli for whatever it is that they're coming for the king for, and so on and so forth. So he explains that how by Esther you see how she was standing outside of the king's palace and she was getting closer. So there's various different levels of bittul. There is a bittul that happens when the person who's coming to the palace, he has an appointment with the king. And they read so much about the king, about his power, his strength, who he is, and what, where, and when. And like, if you imagine today's days, we have sports heroes, we have athletes, we have actors, and so on and so forth. So these are like, people are completely mesmerized by these people. They're like, they idolize them, right? Like everything. Back in the day, who were the king? Was like, wow, the king. So when someone reads and he hears and knows so much about the king and so on and so forth, and he comes to the palace to meet the king, so there is a tremendous bittul already there. What's the bittul? The bittul is coming because he's appreciating his insignificance, his or her insignificance, in the face of a person whose one word of it could open up a world war. Imagine that. One word of it can destroy the planet. Can in 1 second he can sentence 100 people to death. I mean, or he can build a city or build anything can be done. He has all the power. So you feel tiny, small, insignificant in the presence of. So there is that bittul, but that bittul is created. It's not the ultimate bittul. Why is it not the ultimate bittul? Because it's still being created by one's own estimation and evaluation and appreciation of how great the king is. But then there's something else. When this person actually walks into the king's room, actually the Mittler Rebbe is talking about a middle level, when they get the notification that the king has summoned them. They're standing and waiting in the waiting room, they're already bottled, they're already jittering. But then they get the notification and they have to walk up a few stairs. He says that bittul that happens when they're walking up, it's like, it's on a whole different level. But then it gets even deeper once the door opens up and they're face to face with the king. So the bittul is like complete. Because then the bittul is not coming from you, it's actually coming from the king. He's bestowing that power upon the person and nullifying the person completely. Fine. Then there's another bittul. Someone who didn't read about the king doesn't know, it's not. Didn't have any of this preparation and this experience. But somehow, for whatever reason, the king walks in on this person suddenly, without any preparation. That shock and that powerful, he knows that this is the king. And he's in his full royal guard, and he's standing right over him, and he has no metzias. No metzias. That's bittul be'etzem. There's no desire, there's no love, there's no fear. There's just a total, I call it a meltdown. It's just a total disappearance of self in the presence. That's plain bittul. There's nothing else there but bittul. It's pure bittul. It's bittul with, it's 100%. If you're thinking what's the ingredients in this person's soul right now, it's 100% dosage of bittul, nothing else. But then let's go back to the person who's making his way to the palace, and he's excited of going there. There is a bittul, because when he's not going to the palace, he's very, very much into his own, I have my business, I have my this, I have my money, my wealth, this. He's sensing his existence, his importance. Now that he's going to a palace, he's in a state already of shrinking his own existence. He's going to meet someone really important. Suddenly his own importance becomes small. But included in that, the bittul is not just bittul. There is also love, attraction. Maybe not so much love. Maybe instead of love, there's a sense, let's say if he's not going because he wants to see the king. He's going because he was summoned by the king to come. So let's replace the love, let's take the love out, and what do we have? We have fear, because he knows he's coming. And in addition to fear, there is the bittul, the nullification of self, because again, there's something called bittul, just shrinking of importance, the non-existence, the sense of non-beingness, is mixed with fear. The other guy was going to the palace because he invited himself, or he asked for the appointment, or he just wants to go see the king. So that motivation is a motivation of what? Of bittul. There is bittul there, and love. Because the bittul is coming from what? The bittul is coming from knowledge, from understanding. In other words, what we really, I'm going to explain it a little better. If the bittul is not based on an intellectual process, a conceptualization of mind, the bittul is just because a bigger thing, in this case the king, appeared suddenly to somebody and something that is, I'll give you an example. You go home tonight. You're going to go home late because it's pretty late already. So you're going home night and you walk into your living room. And there's someone there with a nice white beard. And you can't look at his face because his face is shining, like really intensely. And you're suddenly face to face with Elijah the prophet, with Eliyahu. There's no knowledge, there's no understanding. You just now, you faint, or if you don't faint, you just, and you know it's Eliyahu. He tells you, and you have no doubt because you look at him and you've never seen a person like that. So that's pure bittul. Then there's another kind of a bittul. There's a bittul that comes from an appreciation. So you're dealing with seichel. It's not the appearance of something that's mavatal that's bringing the bittul. It's your own seichel that appreciates whatever it is that's great, which creates a shrinking of self. But it adds a spice to it. And what's the spice? The mind will always, when it's translating into an emotion, as the mind's influence drops down lower into the emotional realm, it will trigger either on the right side or on the left side, a love or a fear, an attraction or a contraction, one of the two. Those are the two emotions. So here you're having already, this is called a more complex bittul. It's a bittul with an emotion added to it. By the way, it's the first time in Chassidus I've ever counted this idea of sheer, simple shit. Now let's understand something. Where there's 100% bittul, the bittel's touching you at your in your nucleus. The bittul has knocked your socks off, but not your socks off. It knocked your entire existence out from your very, very, very inner core. When the bittul is something that's created by your mind, I'm not going to call it superficial, but it's far more external than that deep bittul when it's pure, simple bittul. And he's going to explain that you can have a double song. Oh, so now, let me put it this way. So now when an neshama is singing, if the bittul that has reached the neshama has come from some powerful light of God that has suddenly, boom, shined on the neshama, which causes the neshama to melt out of God, the song that is going to be sung is going to be more like a tkiya shofar sound, just a simple, singular sound, conveying the shock and the awe and the lack of existence. The song is going to be very, very simple. If the bittul, if the neshama is coming to bittul as a result of an understanding that God is so great, much bigger than what I understood before, and therefore I want to get closer to Him, and I have to get out of where I am, and included in that is a feeling of love, then the bittul that the neshama, then the song that the neshama is singing is a song that conveys bittul and love together. So there's some kind of a mix in that song. And then the color of that beam, which is, as we said before, the beam that's transporting the soul from one Gan Eden to the next Gan Eden, is going to reflect the combination of colors that are in that bittul. Perhaps we would say the simple bittul is plain glass, transparent, colorless, just total bittul. If there's love in it, then it's white. It's white. It's the color of whiteness that's added to the bittul. If it has fear and dread and awe, then it's redness that is added into that bittul. Now it could be sometimes only red. It could be only white added to the bittul. Or it can be both together, where the neshama that's experiencing its
desire to come close to God has both feelings of powerful love to Hashem, but at the same time, also a tremendous trepidation and fear. So it's approaching God with excitement and fear, and that's how it's moving from Gan Eden to Gan Eden, with love and with fear, but more than anything else, the humility. The humility is the main thing over here. It's that humility which is that bittul. The question is it a pure humility, or is it a humility blend with something else? So here's where we get to the 4 levels of song. If it's a pure bittul, like I said before, the king suddenly appeared to someone, Eliyahu Hanavi just suddenly dropped into your room, suddenly without any preparation. It wasn't like you were decided to learn Torah for 1,000 nights, and you were told that afterwards Eliyahu Hanavi is going to appear to you. Then at least the bittul is associated with an anticipation and a waiting and an excitement. If you decided that you're the one that wants to meet Eliyahu Hanavi, like the Belz Rebbe, who was up 1,000 nights to meet Eliyahu Hanavi, of people like that, people, that's a whole different level. But if you're not, and he just appeared, pure bittul. Or the bittul that has either only love or only fear is called a double song. The bittul that has both together, love and fear, is called a triple song. And what's the quadruple song? There is one added level of complexity to it, as we're soon going to see. And that will define the color of that amud that there is in Gan Eden. And as I said earlier, that reflects also in the type of song that it is. If it's and you see, the more deeper it is, it might just be a very short nekuda of a song. Once it starts becoming more complex, it means that there's more intelligence there's more sophistication. Now, on the one hand, it's very rich. A song can be richer. A Ropshetz Chassidic can be very rich. Very rich. A piece of Mozart is very rich. It's rich with it. It brings out variations of emotion, different types of experiences. Here it's happy. Here it's intense. Here it goes into a very melancholiness, like kind of a feeling of frustration and feeling lost. And here it picks you up suddenly with powerful thrust and determination and a sense of perseverance and drive and ambition. And song conveys all these emotions. And sometimes in one song you have a whole story. There's a lot of complexity to it. But sometimes you have the Alter Rebbe, there's some Nigunim of the Alter Rebbe that are just a half, there's like one phrase, that's the whole Niggun. It's very deep, it's like a moment of but it's just simple. It's just a pure bittul without any outer enhancements to it. Yeshir, Poshet, Vishir, Kaful, Kanoida. Sheba Amad Yesh Gimel Gavanim, the 3 colors, Chiver, white, Vesumik, and red. Shub B'chinas Chesed, the Gevura V'Yarik. B'chinas Eskalalus, which means integration. Kihine B'chinas Bittul, Yesh Harbe Madregis, there's many levels. Yesh B'chinas Bittul Poshet, there's a simple Bittul, Nekuda Achas, 1 point, B'chinas Yud, a simple Yud. The Yesh B'chinas Bittul, then there's another kind of a Bittul. Shenichlol bezeb, in addition to the bittul, there is also gam midos. There's also an emotional element to it. B'chinas ava, that in that bittul there is love. Like I gave the example I gave the example of the person traveling to the king. Let's turn it into our king, a chassid traveling to his rebbe. So he's bittul, very very bittul. Because when you're far and you're home and you're distant and you're removed, you can think of yourself, I accomplished so much, I'm such a good chassid. I teach, I daven, I learn, I do this. Suddenly, I got to travel to Rebbe, suddenly I got to travel to the Rebbe. You feel suddenly so tiny, small, insignificant. You feel like, it's like, how in the world am I going to face him? How in the world am I going to stand before his holy countenance? And you don't know what to do with yourself. But even then, there's a very big difference. If the Rebbe suddenly appears in someone's room, the bittul is totally out, as opposed to on the way going, or even the idea that you're preparing to go. It allows for a complete blend of emotions to accompany the humility that comes along. Going to the Rebbe is always humbling. That's another perk of Hasidism. Hasidism comes with a lot of perks. One of the perks of Chassid, of being a Chassid, is you're constantly faced with humility because you have someone you're going to who you're not just looking at as a scholar, but you're looking at that being as a super godly being, and that's why it's another idea. Without Chassidus, you have a Rosh Hashiva. What does a Rosh Hashiva mean? I am big, and he's a little bigger than me, or maybe a few levels of bigger than me, or maybe a lot bigger. But still, there's a certain, the very idea that you can say, oh, I want my kids to grow up to be Gadol Yisroel, means that, it's relative. A chassid would never say a bracha, oh, I want my kids to grow up to be the Rebbe. You be a good chassid. You should be a chassid, Yerushalayim, and a London. Can't be a Rebbe. A Rebbe is of a different cut. It's of a different entity. They asked one of the chassidim, I just saw this today. They asked him after Gimel Tammuz. They asked him, why don't you go look for a new Rebbe now? So he said that he was a chassid who sat in Russia in jail. He said, I was many years in Siberia, I was in a jail or whatever. And I was near Sukkot. And in all the years we were like 6 or 7 years that we didn't have an esrog. And for some strange reason, no one suggested that we should use a potato instead of an esrog. It didn't come up. No one even had such a suggestion. So he was saying, we're going to make a Rebbe now. It's not something you make. It's not something you become. A potato is a potato. A Rebbe is a Rebbe. It's a different entity. I'm not going into the whole question of where the Rebbe is at the Gimel. I'm saying the concept. We're dealing with something that is, there's an infinite barrier. And therefore, part of the beauty of Chassidus is that when you're traveling to that being, it's a whole different level of humility and disintegration, and therefore becoming a vessel for much greater light. Because the more one practices, it's not a good word, practicing, the more we engage in this bittul process constantly, the greater we are, expand as a vessel to receive more and more and more. Because this is an endless process. No matter what you achieve and what you accomplish, you need to disintegrate that vessel to receive greater light. That the very sense of importance and self, and as we said before, content and happiness with where you are, stands as the ultimate obstacle. That's why we have Rosh Hashanah every year. Every year we have to melt away our previous self so that we can open up to be a much greater human being this coming year. That's the process of constant. So this process of inyan can be on many levels. It can be, as we said before, a simple bittul that came upon you when you weren't ready for it, and it's just a bittul. Or it can be a bittul, a nullification and surrender that comes with a feeling of love or a feeling of fear. Right. So he says, and love of fear. And the same is also in the external element of midos, shen chesed gevura. We know love and fear is the neshama of the midos. We know that our midos are, the 6 emotions are chesed, gevura, teferes, netzach. But the external part of it is called kindness. The internal element of kindness is love. Love drives kindness. Fear is the internal element of discipline, driven by yira, fear. So, but even in the chitzonius of the midos, yesh hiskalulus gamke. This idea that there can be a blend, a little bit of bittul blended with something else, you find it in the chitzonius of midos. You have chesed shebegvura. What's chesed shebegvura? Kindness that's part of severity. So where do you have chesed that's part of severity? Chesed part of severity means that on the outer observation, from the observer's perspective, what you're seeing is a expression of gevura, of extense, discipline, and severity. But embedded inside of it is really chesed, kindness. Where is a perfect example for that? A father that's being very tough on his child. He's punishing him, he's disciplining him, he's hitting him. Child needs a patch, and his father gives him one. At that moment, what you're noticing is a raging father that looks angry and tough. But inside that discipline is really a lot of love. And where do you see the lot of love? Why is he hitting him? This kid did that trouble together with 10 other kids. The other kids get away with it. Only his own son gets discipline. Because he loves him and he cares about him. 5 kids ran across the street. God forbid, and there was a truck coming down, an 18-wheeler. Thank God, nothing happened. The father saw it. He takes his kid and gives him 2 smacks. And the one, and he says a bracha. And what happened with all the other kids? Because he and him, there's so much love for his own child. So the love, but outside, someone observing sees only the gevura. He has to know this is his child and he loves him so much. And God forbid, the fear of losing him is like unthinkable to him, and that's what's causing him to lash out in such a severe way. So the chesed is inside the gevura. Gam kein chesed shebegevura. Kama yamakes benoy shubchinas gevura. V'nichlol bezeh b'chinas chesed. The chesed is inside of it. Va'ava, and love. Shemachmas ava v'ritzoynoi lahadrichoi. Because of his love and his will to educate him, b'derech hayashar, to go in the correct path. That's why he's hitting his son, no one else. Not another one. The one that he's rebuking, the pasuk says, that God rebukes the one that he loves. So sometimes when people think, oh, God hates me because I'm having a hard life. No, that's a parent who is taking care of his child, and therefore maybe giving him a little bit of a hard time. Okay, so this luchura, what the Alter Rebbe just brought us over with Chesed and Gevura, is just to show us one thing, that when we're dealing with the inner world of motive and drive, things can get pretty complex. In this case, with a father hitting a child, it's just a blend of Chesed and Gevura. There's no bittul there. Earlier we were talking about the bittul being blended with other things. But he's just giving the example how you can have one thing but mixed with others. So the bittul that a neshama has, the neshama again is getting out, the malachim, neshamas, or whatever it is, or the yid who's davening, and he wants to get out of himself, it's not just the humility that's there, it's blended with something else. When the bittul is just bittul, it's a simple bittul and nothing else is nikra. Nikra shir pashat. Then it's called a shir pashat. I'm waiting for that already. Ne'ima, I'm waiting for that already. For 15 years I'm waiting. Good. You should bring one next time for everybody else. Because I'm the one teaching and I get hot. The listeners, I'm supposed to warm everybody up, but they get cold. So for 15 years I'm having a fight with her. I'm opening the air conditioner, she's shutting it. So finally, for the first time, she brought her blanket. Very good. Okay, good. I'm happy. Okay, bittul pashat. When the bittul, I should never give up. See, sometimes it takes 15 years. Okay, bittul pashat. When the bittul is simple bittul, nikra shir pashat, it's called a simple song. But when the bittul has included in it another midah, ava or yira, love or fear, nikra shir kafel, it's called a double song, because there's something else in the bittul. And when you don't only have one, besides the bittul, you have 2 emotions, ava v'yira gam shnei and baha bittul. Included in the bittul, you have love and fear. Nikra shir meshulash, it's called a triple song, because the song has the bittul, and included, again, in order for it to be a song means bittul. But in that song, in that bittul, you have other ingredients that are part of the chemistry of that song. There's also a fourth a quadruple. Now, he doesn't, and he says, I am Ashakasev. This idea is explained. This is also reflected in the idea of Tcheles Argamon Tela Shani V'Sheish Marzar. 4 types in the Yerios, in the tapestries that covered the Mishkan. You had Tcheles, blue wool. You had Argamon, purple wool. Tela Shani, red wool. And then you had linen. So these represent these 4 experiences we're talking about. 4 types of songs. Shehein Hiskalulus Dalad Bechinas Yachad. It's 4 levels together. Ava v'yira, love and fear. Rachmanis, the 3rd one is mercy, compassion, which is a blend of love and fear. Ubchinas sheish, but that's number 3. Ubchinas sheish, hu ava mesuteres, is a much deeper love, which would correspond. The concealed, hidden love is really the essential bittul that's at the core of the soul. Pure bittul. Pure bittul is the sheish. Now, by the way, these 4 different colors that there are in the Yerios also translate in 4 kalim that is in the Mishkan. 4 containers. 4 vessels. The menorah is on one side. The shulchan is on the other side. The mizbeach is in the middle. And the aron is the 4th one. So the aron is the pure bittul on its own. The aron, there's no love there. It's just the pure, complete, absolute nullification before God. In the menorah, and it was gold, whatever, but I'm just saying it corresponds to the Yerios also have the 4. Yes. There is the menorah, the candelabra. There is the shulchan, the table with the showbreads. There is the mizbeach, there is the altar. And then there is the ark, where the luchas were. But they correspond to the 4 colors that there are in the Yerios, that are above it. Ki ka'ar baruchos hashamayim parasti eschem. Because like the pasuk says, in the 4 corners, like the 4 corners of the heavens, I have scattered you, God says. I have scattered you across the 4 corners. What does that mean? Why did God scatter us across the 4 corners of the heavens? Because we need to do a tikkun in all the 4 midot that there are, in all these 4 elements. Chesed, Gevura, Teferes, and either Malchus or Chachma, which is the point that's higher. These are the four directions. Shu is scholarless, but we know that these 4 directions that there are, each one and we know the 4 corners, just like we said before, there is Chesed and there is Gevura, and Teferes is a blend of both. So when we take a look, for instance, at north and south, the character of the place is very different. In north, which is Gevura, it's very cold. It's extremely cold. South is hot. So there's chesed there, warmth, and tzafin. And then there is east and west, which is also different in its climate. As we know, the Gemara talks a lot about the difference, eastern wind and a western wind. And it's different in terms of because its nature is different. But yet, even though they're different, it's still one world. And there's a constant integration taking place between these four. Where do you see it? In the winds that are blowing. Because at times you only have you have the Santa Ana winds that are blowing. The Santa Ana winds that are coming in, where are they coming? From which direction? Where's Santa Ana? South. They're more like southern winds that are blowing. Yeah? I think so. South. But then there are winds, there are times that it's a one-directional wind. That's like a simple song. Shir Pashat. Sometimes there is a blend of 2 winds coming in from two directions, and it's creating. And they don't, somehow there is a system of escalalos where the weather incorporates both opposite. I don't know, I guess when you watch the meteorologists talking and they're showing how there is a flow coming from this side and a northeast thing coming like that, and it creates various different weather systems based on where the winds are coming from, and that's what the nature of the air quality and the type of whatever it's going to be, moist, dry, wet, humid, it's all containing. And it's really coming from the ruchos, which the ruchos are a reflection of these four midot. So it's really the combination of, we're living, really, what are we living in? We're living in the combination of chesed, gevurah, teferes, and malchus energies. You ever thought about that? And weather systems are created by influences coming from south, it's chesed influence, mixed with gevurah, which is gevurah influence if it's coming from the north, and this is how. And then there are times where, he doesn't talk about it so much over here, but the Mittler Rebbe is this whole discussion. There are times when the winds are coming from all directions, from all four directions, and it creates such a storm in the middle of the ocean. And it's so powerful and it's so strong that it causes all the ships and even the fish, everybody runs. There's a Zohar where the Zohar describes intense storms, maybe a hurricane or something like that. And that's where there is a weather system that's created from a powerful mixture of forces from many, many different angles coming together. And I didn't read that well enough to be able to tell you the context of it, but he refers that to the Shir Meruba that we spoke about, the song that's very complex. So it's a very complex weather system having to do with it. Because, so I'm saying this, what we're learning over here plays out on many, many levels, including on, and that's what he's saying, Ki ka'ar baruchas hashamayim parasti eschem. But you see that when the Eibishter scattered us in the four directions, and what's the function of this, how does it work, the four directions of the sky? Shu iskalalus mitzafin lidarim. South and north blend, just like we said before, chesed and gevurah blend, they're not isolated. When a father has a relationship with his child, which is all love, doesn't mean that there's no discipline in it. Inside, there's discipline. And sometimes the opposite, when you really hate someone, you're going to sometimes treat them in a kind way. As the verse says, if your enemy is hungry, feed him bread. Because you're really throwing coals on his head. Because the fact that he had to get bread from you is causing him more anguish than you're not feeding him. That's what it says. If your enemy, so that's an act of chesed shebegvura. In any case, you find that in the winds as well. The winds that go from north to south means it's an escalalus. It's not staying. The climate of the north is moving to the south. The climate from the south is moving to the north. Al yedei ruach, through the wind, amenashev mitzafin l'darim. It's blowing from north south. L'cheim mizrach l'mayrav, or east to west. U'lepa'amim, and at times yesh escalalus kol adalad bechinois. There is an escalalus from all four directions. Mizrach, Mayriv, Tzafin, Vidarim, east, west, north, and south. Al Yedei Ruach HaManashev Kach, through the winds that are blowing so much. And again, here he doesn't explain it, but in the Mamar, in the other Maimer, he says that creates such chaos. Hold on, let me see over here. When he talks about the different. I'm not reading from inside the Maimer. I'm reading from the Maimer as it is in Tavkuf Samaches, another version of it. Sometimes there's no order in it. You think about what causes weather systems. He says when it will descend into the four directions of the world, from a very, very high, spiritual energy, a spiritual force, from a very high level, shalamaylam is chalkus, one that is beyond division, one that has not divided itself yet into chesed, gevurah, teferes, but one that is included all of them. Hadalad ruach shesham chilulim ke'echad. Obviously, we understand there is a certain point higher and higher where all midos are all still unified in a singular oneness that's beyond it. When that singular oneness that's beyond the division reveals itself, bilti is chalkas klal, az yave behem inyan ubchines bilbul v'taruv is gedoyla. So in its in its essential place, it's beyond right, north, chesed, gevurah, teferes. But if it comes down into a place where there is ischalkus, but yet an energy from a place that's beyond ischalkus, beyond division, appears down here, it's going to drive them all together and it's going to make a kafis. And that's going to cause tornado, I guess, and that's going to cause until they're all blowing together, beli seder v'adraga klal, without any order, ba'ofen shahasfinos, that the boats asher hoylechas alayam, that are going in the sea, lo yuchel leilach klal, they can't go at all, ubehechlech sheyamdu, they have to set anchor, ki efshalem leilach kim al pi ofen mesuder. Usually when boats go in the sea, they chart, they know, they have some kind of a forecast. And they know that's good. Today it's good to set out because we can sense there is a northeastern wind. So it's coming from north and east and it's going to be taking us in that direction. What happens when suddenly the winds at sea start becoming unpredictable and crazy? So what does a ship captain do? He sets anchor. Because or else he's going to suddenly be blown off course so far. So he doesn't want that to happen. So he sets and he's going to wait out the storm if possible. It also makes the waves meshuga. It confuses the waves. And it becomes a mighty whirlpool that's happening. There's a Zoyar. When the sea goes crazy, the ruach zafe stakich, v'chol arvin kaimen, and all boats stop. The fish also escape. Ayin sham. Anyways, let me give the example because again the words, the words in the mimer over here are pretty short, as I said earlier. In the supernal winds, they are the source to the earthy ruchos and directions. The 6 directions of Atzilus, Mizrach, Ma'arav, East, West, Ma'ila, Mata. They are, the pasuk says, Hine makam iti, spaces with me. That means that these elements of space are really with God. They start off as God's emotions. There's a certain system of how the midos are integrated one with the other. They're harmonized. Everything is synchronized in a very orderly tikkun diga way above. Hear what he says. At times, suddenly, a level of energy, of godly light that's much higher than the sphero, than the individual spheros, appears. It reveals itself. That's higher than the ischalkus and midas. And when that happens, all the fish in the supernal sea, which are all the souls of the fish that are in the supernal sea above, Shehem and Neshamis, these are the souls. Va'arvin, and the boats, Shehem HaMalachim, which are the angels. Mizbadrim l'chol star, they run to every direction. Pirishenimtzu b'chinas bilbul v'taruvis, it causes everything to get mixed up. In other words, I'll put it this way. There are fish that are tropical fish. And there are fish that are more cold water fish. But with some, and everybody's got their zone and their place. But when the sea goes crazy, sometimes the fish get mixed up because they run from the storm. So there is a certain mix that happens that fish that usually don't swim together are suddenly finding themselves with new neighbors that they don't have before. And the whole aquarium suddenly got all kicked up in the storm, and then everybody has to find their way back, like Finding Nemo, right? You know, everybody's got to go back home to their own place. So it is in the supernal heavens. There are certain times when there is something that knocks in, and suddenly different neshamas and malachim that never met each other or knew each other are suddenly hanging out together, and everybody's submished because of it. That's an interesting thing. But kol echad ve'echad she'enei moitzim mekayim v'sharshei. Umisha sharshei b'chesed shebestar darim. Someone whose shoresh is in chesed, which is on the south, hoylech el tzafin, suddenly finds himself in the north. Kedimyum bilbul aruchais hagashmis kanal. You know what it was? Like after the war, when Yidden got together and they were suddenly in one shul, you had Hungarian Jews, Ashkenazic Jews, Persian Jews. People suddenly mixed together from they weren't even used to each other. They lived so separately because a storm came. And it threw everything like crazy. It mixed together all the different neshamas and different people. And suddenly, Chassidim, non-Chassidim, this, that, Sfardim, Ashkenazim, this kind of thing, suddenly ended up in one shtibel. Right? And you created that mix. That can be as a result of this kind of an Indian. And that's called it looks like that's called a shir meruba. Okay. In any case, let's go now. Now, what else moves? The winds move from one side to the other. Now, the celestial luminaries in the sky, they are also moving from east to west. The winds he was talking mainly moving from north-south winds. But now let's take a look. The idea of the sun moving. So first of all, in the winds, what do you see? You don't see any bittul. In the winds, you just see the concept of what? Chesed and Gevura mixing together. There is chesed, pure chesed. There is Gevura. In other words, when you're going down south, and it's perfectly down south weather, so then that's pure chesed. You're going up north, and it's perfectly freezing cold northern weather, it's Gevura. And at times when there's a little bit of a blend and mixing together, then you have a skalos chesed and Gevura. You don't see yet the bittul. Now he's going to throw the bittul, because he's trying to explain over here what Indian. The shir, the song, which is a bittul that's mixed. There's a pure bittul and there's a bittul mixed with chesed and gevur. Where do you see that? In the sun. The reason the sun is moving from east to west, it says because the sun is bowing to God. And the Shekhinah, which is the master of creation, the power of God that creates the world and sustains the world, is in the west. The Shekhinah is in the west. That's why the west coast, that's why real estate is so high over here. Because everybody wants to come over here because the Shekhinah is here. The Gemara says, Shekhinah b'mayrev. The Shekhinah is in the west. And you see it also when you go to the Beis HaMikdash, you enter on the east, and the further you go, it gets holier and holier. You're going to the west. The entrance of the temple, the temple stood from east to west. Because the Shekhinah b'mayrev. And the sun, and that's why the sun every day rises on the east, and it's bowing. It's bowing. Now the physical sun is just moving, but what's causing the physical sun to race across the sky with such enormous speed? The sun has a soul. And the soul of the sun has greater intelligence than we will ever have. The Rambam says the intelligence of the stars and the sun is a very great intelligence. They have a neshama, they have a soul. That soul recognizes its creator and is singing to the creator. And what song? What did we say earlier? What song? Song is that feeling of smallness and in the face of something much greater, and therefore wanting to get out of itself. But where is it going? It's going from east to west. So when it's going from east to west, if it's starting in the east, that means it's experiencing an eastern experience, whatever east represents. It's going to the west, it's going to experience a western experience. But in the middle of it all, it's all in a state of song and a state of bittul. How do we know that the sun moves? And remember, just like we said, neshamis, what moves them? The song moves them. What moves the malachim? Song moves them. What moves us by a Farbrengen from level to level? You go to, by the way, it's another interesting thing. When you go to a Chassidic gathering, what do you do? This Matzah Shabbos, we're going to have a Malav Malka in honor of Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev. What are we going to do? We're going to tell some stories and say things, and we're going to sing songs. Why is a Chassidic Farbrengen so full of songs? Why can't it be like a shir? You sit down, the Rav will give a shir. That's not a Farbrengen. Because the Chassid that sits down with the Farbrengen is not happy with himself. He's walking in there and that's the whole idea of Farbrengen. That's what. By the way, you should know that when the Alter Rebbe wanted to name the Chassidim, was in the beginning, it was a movement that didn't have a name yet. The name the Alter Rebbe wanted to give the movement was not Chassidim, he wanted to give them Balei Tshuva. That's the whole movement. It's the people that are not satisfied with who and what they are and what they sent. Without Chassidus, I learned, I know. It creates a certain sense of accomplishment, sense of importance. Chassidus is you're face to face with God. You're constantly feeling the lack, the nothingness. So, but how do you move? So you have a mashpia who's going to sit and he's going to give over thoughts. But you want to connect to those thoughts. You want to integrate it. You want to relate. You want to go to a higher place. So you have to sing a niggin. The niggin takes you out from where you are, and it'll elevate. And then you sing another niggin, and then you sing another niggin, and you hear something, and hopefully something is connecting. It's going in. That's the niggin. So now, if everything is moving, the sun also moves and sings. When Yeshua stopped the sun in the sky, Yeshua stopped the sun in the sky, the pasuk says, they sang Shira and they said, Shemesh begivoin doim. The sun stopped over the place called Givon. It stopped. But if it wants to say stopped, it doesn't say stopped. It says doim, it was silent. What's the idea of being silent? Because he wanted the sun to stop in the sky. Why silent? The Nakuda is like this. The reason the sun is moving is because it's singing. So next time you see the sun, which is hopefully going to be tomorrow morning, realize that there's an incredible, powerful song it's singing as it's racing through the sky. In its song, the sun is singing, and its song is its awe of God, of the Shekhinah, and it wants to perceive more and more and more of the Shekhinah, and that's where it's singing, and that's why it's bowing, because song leads you to bittul and nullification, and that's its racing towards the Shekhinah in its nullification. And when Yeshua wanted it to stop, it made it be silent. So when the sun was silent, it couldn't sing. Couldn't sing, then it stays in one place. Because when you're not singing, you're not moving. That's the rule. When you're not singing, you're not moving. So when the sun stopped singing, it's standing. Always need to sing. That's the rule. Always need to sing. But where's the Alter Rebbe leading this? That the sun is going from east to west. It's connecting the two sides of the sky, east and west, which are two complete different dynamics. One bittul that has chesed and gevura, or whatever. V'zeu gam ken yirlich Hashem shemizrach l'mayra v'gam ken inye bittul v'hu b'chinas nefesh shebeshemesh. There is a nefesh, there is the soul that's in the sun. Shu b'chinas hasagasa. What's its soul? It's the soul of the sun is that it has hasaga, it grasps, it knows its creator, but it wants to know more, and it knows how limited it is. The body of the sun is following the spirit of the sun. The spirit of the sun is singing to God, so it's creating a physical movement in the body of the sun. The b'chinas bittul in that bittul. As it is explained in the idea of Shemesh, the sun, in Givon was silent. B'drush techar vasturim, famous drush we learned that drush in Mitzvah Smila. We once learned it a couple of years ago, the bris of circumcision, where it talks about Yeshua stopping the sun. V'yesh b'zeh beis deis bali chasa. Oh, now when the sun is going, it's going west. But it's not always west. Sometimes it's traveling from east to west, but moving more in a southern direction. And other times it's traveling from east to west and moving more, at least in our appearance, I don't know what it is, more in an eastern. Sometimes it's setting more to the east, sometimes it's heading more to the, not to the west, more to the north or to the south, different angles as it's setting. So what does that mean? We said before, there's the bittul, but the bittul can be included more with love or more with fear. Remember, the neshama is going, sometimes they're inspired more with awe of God, sometimes they're inspired more with love of Hashem. So the sun's direction in its landing in the northern side, or more in the south side. Remember, south is love, and discipline is in the north. If it's dry, it's being driven. Deos, I don't think means two opinions. It has two awarenesses. He doesn't mean this. There's no machloikas anywhere. I don't think he means that. I think the yesh beis deos balichasa means there's two experiences, two awarenesses in its going. Imu mitzad ava, if it's going with love, v'tshuka and longing, or mitzad bittul apashit, or it can be going just with a simple bittul, then it's going straight west. Ube'emes yesh lepa'amim bittul pashit. And sometimes there is just a simple bittul. Ulepa'amim yesh bezegam kein pchenas ava. And at times there's also a love. Keniskaliyah. Fezeu sha'amar v'zarach hashemesh, the sun rises. Hoylech el doraim, it's going to the south. V'soivev el tzofain, it's turning to the north. Uket the pidish al zebezoya reish pashas vayetze, shu liyois p'chenas eskavalus, dalad p'chenas mayrev, mizrach mayrev, tzofim v'dorim. The sun, when it's crossing the sky, is actually, the Zohar is saying, it's connecting the four directions. Because it's going from east to west, but at times it's tilting south, at times it's tilting north. So it's connecting the Arba Ruches HaShamayim. V'zorach uba hein mizrach u'mayrev. Zorach is what? Is mizrach. It rises in the east. Uba, it sets mayrev. And then before that it says, V'zarach HaShemesh hoylech el daraim v'soivev el tzafay. So you have all four connections that are connected. V'zeh inyan. So now once we've understood this, so now we understand the complexity of music. So now we'll understand the power of song and why the one who is the master or the founder of music, his name is Yuval. Yuval. Yuval means, by the way, Yuval means to being brought, you're being brought somewhere. You're being led somewhere. Lohoivil means to lead, to move something, to bring somebody to somewhere. Yuval means it is being moved. It is being brought. Where's the Lashon? Yavilu shai lamoira. They will bring presents to Mashiach. Yavilu, they will bring. So Yuval means being brought. Well, what does music do? It brings you, it moves you, it takes you from place. When Yuval avi kol toifes kinar. Pidish Yuval lashon hoylocha is the lashon of leading. Shemoy v'lo mamshech lamayla. It's leading and bringing somebody up. Al yedei kinor ve'ugav, through the kinor. And that's why interesting. You know the prophets? All the people that were seeking prophecy. In the olden days, you had schools of prophets. And these were people that were seeking to be prophets. They worked very, very hard on purifying themselves and removing themselves from all material attachments. And then they would go into like deep meditations and try to connect. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't work. Some of them became prophets, some of them attempted all their lives and they didn't become a prophet. It's like whether you connected to the Wi-Fi or you didn't connect to the Wi-Fi. Either you did or you didn't. But one of the methods it says that they did when they were seeking prophecy, they always had musicians playing. And they would call in the musicians and tell them to play a nigun, and they would, why? Because the song takes, in order to have prophecy, if there's ever an example of needing to be outside of your containers and outside of your limited stuffed vessels, it's to receive prophecy. The song will move you into a different place. So therefore, Shamoy v'lamamshach l'mayla daikina v'ugav b'china shir kanal, that's what the song is all about. Shayadei ashir, through the song, hu aliyah is the elevation, yoitzin b'shir, they go out of a song, they go out with a song. So that's Yuval. That's why he's Yuval. Yuval Avi Kol Teifes Kinar. He's making instruments. He was the one who created harps, flutes. This is the power to move. And again, there's the physical maker of these instruments, but it means that his neshama, his soul power, was related. Now here in the Maimer, he's not so clear, and what does it mean? Avi, he's the father, he's the founding father of it. He's the source from where all this comes from. But again, as I told you in the beginning, I feel a little uncomfortable because, as I told you, we have in the Mittler Rebbe's Maimer, there is 12 back-to-back pages explaining this Maimer, and I only got to read maybe four or five. So there is much more explanation in the short little Maimer here. But in any case, that's Yuval. His brother's name is Yuval. What is Yuval? So there's three words I mentioned in the beginning. There is Yuval. Yuval means being moved. There is Yovel. What is Yovel? Yovel means the one who is moving. Yovel, whenever you put a cholam on something, the cholam is the sound that makes oi sound. Okay? When you put the cholam on something, what does it do? It turns it into the po'el, as opposed to the nifal, the one that's being moved. Okay? So the one who's moving, if someone is sitting on a chair and someone is pushing him around, or someone is taking someone in a wheelchair, let's say. So the one that's in the chair is Yuval, he's being moved, and the one that's leading him is Yovel, he's the one moving him. So Yovel is the level from where all this inspiration comes from. It's almost like where all the songs come from. The composer of the songs, I would think. The idea of, I don't mean that I don't want it to get stuck with a wheelchair over here. I'm just saying I just wanted to show that there's two people. One is doing the moving and one is being moved. So the one that's, Yuval means, Lahovil means to move from place to place, or to bring. The one that's being brought is called Yuval, and the bringer is called Yovel. And what's Yovel? Yovel is the essential noun, is that the right word? Noun for, not adjective. What's the? Let me explain. It's the etzem of movement, not the mover. Shem davar. What would that be in this case? No, but I'm looking for it's the noun. It's the noun of the word. Is Yuval. Yuval is the active element of it. Yovel and Yuval. But the noun itself is Yuval. The Yuval, and therefore, what is he? He Haya avi Yoshev Ohel. He's the father of all the people who live in tents. Umikne, and because of their shepherding animals. So, but again, I have the same name. Yuval and Yuval. What kind of relationship does it have to do with the tents? Well, we spoke about the sun before. And we said that the sun is a singing being. Just like the neshamas and the malachim are singing. The sun is full of song, and all of its power is constantly driven by song. But the sun also has a tent. Like it says in the pasuk, La shemesh sam ohel bahem. To the sun, Hashem planted an ohel, a tent. What does that mean? We just came out of a sukkah. A sukkah is a tent. And what does the sukkah represent? What does the tent represent? The tent represents what we call an ur makif, an encompassing light from above. There is an ur makif, there is an encompassing light from above. And what does that mean, encompassing light? A sense of a powerful sense of something utterly transcendent. When we're in a sukkah, we sense that a lukus getlachkeit is bigger than us. When we're doing another mitzvah, we feel like kind of we can take the mitzvah in. The sukkah we can't take in; it's too big. It's an ur makif. It's an encompassing light. In order to have the sun sing, if the sun doesn't have an ur makif, why should it sing? The fact that there is an ur makif creates this constant awareness that there's more and there's higher and there's something greater. And that's what stimulates song. Without the ur makif, there is no song. Because what are you singing? So what keeps the sun moving is the powerful awareness that the sun has that there is an awesome infinite creator that it will never know. And it wants to know. So in a sense, this ur makif is the source for all the songs that it will, because what's happening is from this ur makif light, it gets a little inspiration, a little bit that it understands, and that creates within it the desire, the nature of the desire that it has now. As we spoke before, that humility blended with love, or the humility blended with fear, or the humility blended with, that whole process of wanting to get out of himself, of its state, is all driven by a constant realization of a sedah hecher. There's something higher. Something hecher in Yiddish. There is something higher. There is a higher reality, a bigger reality. Let's read inside. Kiksiv, it says in the pasuk, l'shemesh sam ohel bahem, that the shemesh, to the sun he made an ohel. Piddish, kedei sheyeh la shemesh b'chinezu. God forbid the sun would stop singing, which means if the sun would become self-content, if the sun would become satisfied, if the sun would say, look what a Talmud Chacham I am, I patch myself on my belly, I'm so happy, look at me, ich bin a shtickle a Talmud Chacham, I'm okay. The moment the sun reaches to Chas v'Shalom, that kind of state of a thing, what would happen? There's no song, there's no singing, and God forbid, there's no rotation of the sun across the sky. It's all because the sun is constantly thirsting and yearning and singing. What keeps the sun constantly in that state? It should have bittul, it's shuka and a longing. It needs to have the oil. Oil ubchinas makif momayla. It's the makif that's from above. Nimshach ha'arazu. It's drawn this ha'ara. Shetia tamid b'chinas bittul. That the sun should always be in the state of bittul. That the sun should always. I have a friend of mine who has a sukkah, and he so badly wanted to make a Simchas Beis Yoshev. He so badly wants to make somebody in a sukkah where he can sing and Chassidim get together. Every night sukkahs to sit and to fabrein. What's a sukkah? Because a sukkah is an ur makif that creates within you that desire to connect during the time of sukkahs. But his landlord is what's it called again? Warned him that it's disturbing his sleeping, and you can't. So Mamish forbids him from having that fabrein. So I was saying that the landlord is not a chassid, very far from being a chassid. So sukkahs is you have an ur makif, you have something higher. A chassid wants to fabrein on the sukkah, he needs to. And the Gemara says that in sukkahs the people never in sukkahs the people in the Beis Hamikdash never slept. It says during Simchas Beis Hashe'eva. Kishahayinu semeichen, these are the words of the Gemara. Kishahayinu semeichen besimchas Beis Hashe'eva. When we were rejoicing in Simchas Beis Hashe'eva, lo re'ina shina einenu, our eyes did not see sleep. Why? Sukkahs, you can sleep. Sukkahs, you sense the sukkah, you sense dancing, singing. That's the whole sukkahs. But this guy was beside himself that he wants to make a Simchas Beis Hashe'eva, but his landlord tells him that his bedroom is right on top of his sukkah. So I told this fellow, I said, I found a girsa, a little bit different in the Vilna Shas. There's a Shas printed in Vilna. Actually, that's the Shas that everybody uses. I said in the Vilna Shas, there was a different girsa. It says, I told him to show his landlord. It says, Kishahayinu yashenim, lo ra'inu simcha beis hashe'eva einenu. When we were sleeping, our eyes never saw simchas beis hashe'eva. Obviously, I was very cynical. I'm sorry. It doesn't say that in the Gemara. I wanted to tell them, I found a girsa in the Gemara that has a little different girsa than what it says in our Shas. In our Shas, it says that what? That sukkahs, where we were busy dancing and being up the whole sukkahs, our eyes did not see sleep. But it says in the Shas, in that girsa, it says, when we were sleeping, our eyes did not see Simchas Beis Hashe'eva. In any case, the sukkah, makif, the sun has a makif. It has a power. In other words, God, basically what I'm saying is God is always teasing us. The makif is a teaser. The makif is always keeping God like above us, always above us. No matter how far you go, he's always above. So you always want more and more. He's holding the candy a little further. So as far as we want, can't have it. You want it, you can't have it. So it creates that thirst and that longing. So to have a song, you need to have a makif. That's why these are two brothers. Yuval is already the song. So Yuval comes from when there is a certain grasp, a certain understanding, or a certain stimulation about a certain understanding. So therefore, it's creating within you already a sense of what it is you want, and a feeling towards it, as we spoke earlier. It can be a simple bittul, or it can be a bittul leaning towards love, or leaning towards fear, or both together, whatever type of experience you have. But that comes already from a little bit of an or pnimi. Or pnimi means from an internalization. You internalize something, and therefore you want it. But in order to create and stimulate that, there has to always be a sense of a makif, of something higher and transcendent, which is always keeping this notion that I'm never there. Yuval, and that's why he's called Yuval. He's the source from where everything moves. Yuval is the noun of movement. If there wouldn't be this higher dimension of makif, then there wouldn't be any singing. Because what's the drive in the cosmos? What's the drive in the cosmos? You have it already. It's all in you. The drive in the cosmos are because there's something bigger. So that's the Yuval. Now, the Ohel b'chinas makif mamayla nimshach ha'orezu shetia tamid b'chinas bittul. It should always have a bittul. V'zeu b'chinas Yuval, and that's now the word Yuval loshin Now the word Yuval has another meaning. Yuval also comes from the word bilbul. Bilbul means mixed and everything is mevulval, everything is mixed together. Lashon vayaval lechamoirim shu inyan bilbul v'taruvos. It's a bilbul and a taruvos. I don't know what the pasuk vayaval lechamoirim is. I didn't get a chance to look it up. Piddish, and he's going to connect these two things. Yaval means it's the source of all movement, but it also means it's what? Mixed. Why? Because here's the idea. Remember we spoke about north, south, east, west, different corners. That's once godliness is manifesting already in the creative system on any level, but already within a certain system, you have the various different directions as we spoke before. But then there is a place where everything is still mixed together. In the Or Makif, things are not yet, in the state of Makif, things are not yet defined. Things are still, everything is still equal. I'll give you an example. I spoke earlier about the Mishkan having 4 colors and also having 4 kalim. The difference between the two is that in the kalim, each keli is a separate keli. The menorah, the shulchan, the mizbeach, the ark, the altar, the ark, each one is separate. But when they're in the tapestries, what's the tapestries? The curtain on the top, it's part of the ohel. There's all 4 colors, but they're all what? They're all one. They're all merged, they're all intertwined one with each other. And that's the way it is always in an example. We're speaking about God. We talk about, let's say, Hashem, or something awesome and great. So what's your reaction? When you're actually in the realm of study, in the realm of intellect, in the realm of appreciating, it's still in a very cerebral place, not yet in an emotional place, but in a very intellectual or high up here place. You can have, God could be at the very same moment awesomely powerful and great, and at the same time extremely lovable and desirable. But that's if it's all cerebral, if it's up here. Once you translate it into your heart, which means into the emotions, which means already far more internalizing it, that it's reaching you on an emotional level, you won't experience both emotions. It's either love, like Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu experienced the emotion, it was intense love. Embedded in the love is fear, but really it's one experience of love. Or Yitzchak, which is fear and awe and not love. So each one independent and each one separate. Following? But when it is in concept, they're both there at the same time. The more things come down to be expressed, the more individualized, compartmentalized things become, distinct and separate. So that's why it's like this. In the world of Yuval is a world of bilbul. He sits in an ohel, it's an ohel. What is this Yuval? He's the master of the tents. And there's another diuk over here. Yoshev Ohel means he causes the Or Makif to descend. In other words, you want to feel the Makif. If you don't feel, everybody has a Makif. Whether the guy is singing Simchas Beis She'eva or if he wants to sleep the whole Simchas Beis She'eva, he too has a sukkah and he's also sitting. Everybody. Question is, do you feel this Makif or you don't feel it? Is it something real in your life that's causing you to get excited? Or is it, yeah, there's a big God out there, but what does it have to do with me? It's not. So the point over here is Yoshev Ohel. The Ohel needs to settle down. The sukkah is teishvu. You have to sit in the sukkah. You have to get the sukkah to come down and move you. Once it moves you, you will sing. The song comes as a result of connecting to that Or Makif. But the Or Makif itself, in Makif everything is unified. In Pnimi is where things become separated and individualized. So therefore, so there's no differentiation yet. The yuchalis arav hakol, everything can be mixed together. And that enables that there should be able to be afterwards Yuval avikol toifes kinar, which is the bittul kinis as we said before. V'zeu avi Yoshev Ohel Umikne. Shebchines Ohel u'bchines makif kanal. It's a makif. V'lechein yochoi liyos gam lemikne lahamshich lamata. He's saying because it's makif, it can also come down lower. And that's the reason why it can be, who's sitting in the tent? Ohel, the person is sitting, and in a sense, he sits together with the animals because he's living with the herds. He's a vikol Yoshev Ohel Umikne, person and animal. Ki makif ain by ma'ilo mata, because in makif there's no up and down, so human and animal can be together. K'mo shekasem etachas royas oil. K'mo Yaakov, like Yaakov Avinu, shahaya royat sign. Yaakov was a shepherd of sheep. Maka livne lach. Hiskalos chesed gevura teferes ein zoy vayetze. Sha'adam acha royat sign uroya begashmias. A regular person who is a shepherd of sheep, of flocks, is physically a shepherd. Masha enka Yaakov shoy Yoshev alem. What he's saying over here is that there is a special connection between someone who's connected to the Or Makif. Yaakov, what does the Torah say about Yaakov? He sits in the tents. That means that Yaakov is connecting to the Or Makif. That's why we know Sukkot corresponds to Yaakov. Avram Pesach, Or Makif, encompassing light. And by Yaakov it says, Umiknehu asa sukkos. To his cattle he made sukkos. We have the satiation in this pasuk. The one who's sitting in tents, Yoshev Ohel Umikne, with cattle. Because the differentiation that there is between man and animal is only when we're coming down in Or Pnimi, in an internalized light. So there is the human, there is the animal, and so forth. But on the levels of Makifim, it's Ma'ilo Mata, up and down is equal. It's a level so transcendent and so high that it equals Adamu Behema Teshia Hashem, man and animal equal. So he's saying like this, or what I think he's saying. Sha'adam Acharo Yatsoy Nuroya Bagashmias. To think that Chas v'Shalom Yaakov Avinu was a shepherd, yes, he was, of course. He was physically a shepherd. But his physical being physically a shepherd was just a manifestation of something very, 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 very high and deep that was in his life. The reason why Yaakov Avinu was a shepherd, Begashmias, is because he's a shepherd, Beruchnias. Umasheke Yaakov shoy Yoshev Olam himshich bebchinas makifim liyisroyat zayin v'zeu Yoshev Ohel Umikne kanal. From this level of makif is where the music comes from. I'm not getting this so well over here. This last nekuda of where what does he want with Yaakov Avinu? And he's also explaining how Yaakov Avinu did an eskalos. I guess because he was connected to the makif. You see, one of the things about Yaakov Avinu was that when he was working with Lavan's sheep, he was peeling sticks, and he created stripes on the sticks to help the animals be born with stripes. And in Kabbalah it says that's because Yaakov is mixing red. The sticks were red. They were from they were chestnut, from chestnut, and they were red. But he peeled them, and as he peeled the redness off, he exposed the underlying white on the stick. So it was a mixture of red and white. So that's the iskalos. The power from Yaakov to be able to mix right is because Yaakov is rooted in the makifim. Because he's a Yoshev Ohel. And the Ohel, everything is, once things, I said before, once things come down in what? Once things come down in Pnimi, so things become very distinct, defined, and separate. But in the one who's connected to the Makif, Yaakov was the one who was Mamshich, Yoshev Ohel. He was causing the Ohel to descend, and therefore his avodah was able to be, first of all, man and animal together. What's he doing spending time with animals? He's a human. But man and Makif creates that sense of equality completely between all levels, because to the Or Makif, which is higher than everything, everything is equal. But at the same time, also the ability to create harmony between various different forces, because in front of the makif, everything melts and harmonizes together. Something like that. And that's why the dafka, these are the two brothers, Yuval and Yuval, the two powers. One of them is a power to bring us to the, giving us access and an awareness and a connection to the Or Makif, which is the stimulator of all sense of lacking and yearning and desire for more, which is what creates music. Because all music is created through a sense of, I'm missing something and I want more. That's the drive of music. And that's embedded in the very, very, very fabric of humanity. Because the Eibishter didn't create us just to have a little money and have a little this and have a little that. God created us for something much deeper and much higher. And for that reason, the mankind has to constantly strive for something deeper and higher, which is accompanied. And that process involves, here's the thing, you can't deepen and go higher if you just want to bring yourself by holding on to yourself. You have to let go of yourself. And the letting go of yourself is the power of music. It causes you to let go of whatever it is that you're holding on to so you can free yourself and open yourself up to something more powerful. And these are the two brothers that are here, Yuval and Yuval, together creating this powerful symmetry, if you might say, that exists there in the world to... Okay.
Hold on to yourself.
And let go of yourself so that you can move forward. L'chaim. Wow, it came out better than I thought. When I was sat down here, I didn't know where this thing is going to go. I had no idea what's going to go. But God helped. Hold on one second. I just want to shut the recording.